Alright, today's video, we decided, as you can read from the description, is just talk about my thoughts on Gojo, and if he's the, actual fraud or not. I think he did really fun on that, really good on that thumbnail, so you guys tell me what you think. So, first thing I just want to talk about, and obviously spoilers for the newest chapter of JJK, is, Gojo just got off-screen and killed. Yeah, just got killed right then and there. Despite beating the living shit out of Sukuna, KOing him, what was it, putting a hole in his chest 3 times, knocking him out once, one-shotting the 10 Shadow, Chimera summon, then one-shotting Magarata, then, almost one-shotting, Sukuna himself to the point that he can't heal himself well, he is not at maximum output, he is very damaged, while Gojo is at max power. This is everything. Gojo is just max everything. He's perfectly fine. And despite all of that, Gojo being claimed to win, right then and there, the next chapter of today's chapter just straight up puts us with him already in the afterlife talking to his friends that are already dead about how strong Sukuna was. Talking about how Sukuna is much stronger than he is. Really, jerking off Sukuna, talking about, oh yeah, even with the 10 shadows, even if he didn't have the 10 shadow, he still would have beaten me. He is so much stronger to me, and all this, glazing of Sukuna. And the next thing we see is Gojo is cut in half, dead on the ground. So it's just what? So yeah, that's just how Gojo went out. So now everyone who's oh yeah, Sukuna was a fraud, is rejoicing now calling Gojo a fraud, which is pretty funny, in my opinion, how that, comes around. And this is why I didn't really call Sukuna a fraud, because I always thought it was really weird to do that for multiple reasons. First, it was very clear he was going to win. The plot needs Gojo to lose. We still have that one guy with lightning, I'm very bad with names, so forgive me, who still needs to, fight Sukuna. We got Isidori. We have Yuji, not Isidori, I mean Yuji. Well, Isidori, Yuji, you know what I mean. But, Yuji, we got Maki, we got Yuta, we got so many other people who still need to fight, alright? And you're telling me that Kenjaku is gonna fight all of them plus Gojo? No! Gojo needs to go. And plus, you still have the whole narrative with Gojo wants his students to surpass him. And what other way to prove that his students surpassed him than beating the man that killed him? So, that's why, plot-wise, Gojo couldn't have won that, because it just wouldn't fit the narrative. Personally, I kind of wish they didn't do him dirty the way they did, where, have him beat the living shit out of Sukuna, and then suddenly have Sukuna win off-screen, off-panel, without showing us, what happened, besides telling us, oh yeah, that slash he did. So, let me explain how he was able to cut through Gojo's infinity, and how he was able to cut him in half. Pretty much is explain that Makaraga doesn't just auto-adapts, or just adapts in increments. No, throughout the whole progress of the fight, he is slowly adapting to something. The more he sees it, the more he will adapt to it. Quicker. So pretty much because of how much of a genius Sukuna is with Cursed Energy, with it being stated multiple times to not use a technique in front of Sukuna, because Sukuna will learn it, he used pretty much Madaraga as a guide of how to beat Gojo. So while he was sitting there in the background letting Madaraga do the dirty work, he was watching and observing how he was attacking Gojo, and because of that, he learned how to slice infinity itself, which is what it is. So the way I describe it, and this is how infinity works with Gojo. You have point A to point... I'm going to say it like this. You got point 1 and point 2. In between point 1 and point 2, he can add he can add 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, and he can keep adding these decimals of infinitesimally small amount of space in between him and something else, infinitely, making it to that no matter how much time passed, no matter how much distance is traveled, there will always be more distance that needs to travel, which is why the closer you get to him, the slower you will become. So that's the way it works, is you just keep adding it. So what Sukuna did, in my opinion, is he did one of two things, which is he cut the space itself, which doesn't really make too much sense. The way I describe it is, imagine Sukuna can see the point 1 to, I mean, point 1 to point 2, and everything in between. And instead of drawing a line for point 1 through the 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 into infinity, where it would slowly slow down and never hit point 2, instead, he skipped all that and just drew a circle over point 2, and in that circle spawned the slash. So that's how I see it. It says he cut spaced itself by I think it's because he just straight up cut the space. Instead of cutting through A to B, he just had a cut to B. He just straight up cut that shit. That's how I see it. This is the only way I can really understand it. And this, going off of how the author would describe things, I think that's how he would describe it. Since that example I gave with how infinity worked came from the mouth of the creator himself. So, that's the best I got with that. So anyways, this feels very disappointed. And to like many people, including I, feel like this is one of the worst deaths we have ever seen since Madara from Naruto. But I can't be too mad because honestly, this kind of makes sense. This is written in the way that this is honestly how it would go down. This makes a lot of sense with how Sukuna character is and how Gojo character is. Because the whole time, Gojo was just straight up dicking. He was dicking. Just going full force without any stops and just wrecking Sukuna's ass, being a Chad, because that's how he is as a jujutsu sorcerer. That is how he is as a mentality. He fights for himself, and at the end of the day, he bets on himself. He is the enlightened one, as he put it. He put everything on him and improve. He has the drive to be the best, and he has the ambition, the motivation, and the understanding to be the best, which we see all the time with this concept. To always strive to be the strongest, and that's usually what the strongest are, Sukuna and Gojo, where Gojo is about always, like I said, betting on himself, viewing him out as the best. And a good example of this is during the fight where he got sealed at, where during the disaster curses, he was putting his example of he can't use his domain, or all the people are gonna die and so on. But he had to do something to kill them, so like either let the disaster curses run away, or kill all the smaller curses, killing the people. So what he did instead of picking one or the other was bet on himself and did a 0.1 second domain expansion to stun lock everybody so he can, it's just happened in anime. It was badass. So that's his mentality. Where some may have the idea of, like Megumin, for example, is always constantly being shown that what holds him back is he's scared. He plays the self-sacrificing way. And this is shown in the baseball game they had, where people like Gojo will always hit for the home run every single time. But people like Megami would go for the bunt to try to just guarantee something, the safety. Never truly taking themselves to the next level and pushing themselves. So that's like the mentality they have. Where the reason why I say the fundamental difference is Gojo has more of an ego compared to the Sukuna. And the way we see this with Sukuna as in his speech against Gojo, where if Gojo, the volcano one, not Gojo, Jogo? Yeah, Jogo, yeah. Where he talked to Jogo about how if he was strong, he was truly strong, but he's not the strongest. If he truly wanted to be the strongest, he should have taken everything he holds and cares about and burned them to ash. That's what was holding Jogo back. He didn't have the mentality to take everything into his hand and burned it for him to be the strongest. He had things holding him back, things keeping him weak, compared to Gojo and Sukuna, who didn't. But the difference is, I see it, in my opinion, is Sukuna doesn't have a ego and will do whatever it takes to win, even if it's dishonorable or makes him look like a bitch. So the whole part of him looking like a fraud throughout this entire fight and looking like a bitch was him purposely making himself look like that. He had himself get his axe beat and let Madaraga do the hard lifting so he can learn how to cut through infinity. So he could truly come out on top in the end like he did in this chapter. So he disregarded his own, sense of self, his own ego and pride to just guarantee the win, no matter what it took. Even if it mean him being a bit of a bitch, even if it mean he's getting his ass kicked, he did what it took, no matter what. And I think that's what Gojo meant by when he said Sukuna would have won even without the Ten Shadow technique, because Sukuna himself would have figured out a way, no matter how shameful it was, which is why he's considered the fallen one, I believe. Since, fall from grace, you're shameful, you're no longer prideful, and that's just how I interpreted it all. And because of that, he is above Sukuna. Sukuna is above Gojo. Plus, another reason, too, we were in this chapter, is stated that Gojo fights for perverted reason. He doesn't fight to survive or to protect. He does it out of his own self-satisfaction, which is why we see him balls blazing, being big dick energy, dicking on everybody, just being the best and betting on himself, and truly just looking like a badass because he bets on himself, and he do it for his own self-satisfaction. Versus Sukuna, who does it to survive. He is doing it to survive no matter what, meaning he is willing to go the extra mile in any means. And I will give it credit to Sukuna. The way it explained how he won by using Magaraga as a guide to do it himself was very smart. And it was very neat. So it's like, yeah, that makes sense. He used Magaraga to guarantee the victory by putting Gojo into a bad spot to where he had to counter him, but while he had to counter him, he will show Sukuna the counter to Gojo Infinity, which is like a clutch. So he took away the only thing keeping him from winning. So if he can't win with Domain, he need to find another way to get the sure hit. So this is how I see it. I think it was overall... It's a bittersweet conclusion to the fight. It makes sense narratively. It makes sense in the way it went down and written. Makes sense for the character themselves and the symbolism of it all. But God, does it feel unsatisfying to just see Gojo at a hit off screen. The only critique I wish they did was show Sukuna thoughts a little bit, talking about looking at how Magarata cut him. He's thinking to himself, I wonder if I could do that, or thinking to himself, in last minute in desperation. Maybe we might get it next chapter a little bit. We don't know what next chapter is going to be. Him thinking to himself, maybe if I try to replicate what Magaraga did, I'd be able to win here. Something. But at the same time, it makes sense for Sukuna to have this sudden, win out of nowhere, unexplained, because it is kind of like he is a trickster. Things come out of nowhere. So it makes sense for his character too. So like I said, I can't be too mad, because all this shit makes sense for the characters and how they are and how they interact. God, is it so bittersweet. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to like, sub, please sub. We're close to getting to 500 subscribers. It will mean a lot to me. Please comment down below. Tell me what you think of the video. Even if you didn't like it, if you like it, it will help the video out a lot. And it will also tell me you enjoyed this. And if you didn't like it or have any feedback whatsoever, or even want to continue this conversation on the talking points that I made, please comment it down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a good day. Bye.